Very, very welcome. It's so great to have you here at another Storyals webinar. Our mission is to inspire, motivate, and educate users on how to excel in the digital workplace. And it's amazing to see that there's such interest. With me today, I have Julianne. Julianne is our executive director in Storyals USA and also an amazing productivity coach. We also have joining us a little bit behind the scenes today. You'll be taking on different roles. Midhun, some of you know him. He's our technical services manager, and he will also be playing in some of the roles when we do the collaboration. So like I mentioned, Storyals is all about training digital leaders, and we do that through storytelling and continuous inspiration and learning. So today, it's not enough to just get a license and get the technology. It really is important that we work together and that we also challenge each other a little bit, but that we find the joy in using technology. So the name Storyals stands for story-based tutorials. And we really thrive in making high video productions of how you can use these tools in your everyday work life. No one wants to read boring manuals today. Everyone just wants to see, how can I do this? And how can I use this technology to make my life better? Okay, so why don't we start a little bit, okay, what is this loop thing? and and why do we need it? We have so many different collaboration tools in the Microsoft 365 stack. Do we need yet another tool? And where does this come from? Is it something that Microsoft acquired? Is it something that has, been developed? And the truth is that it actually has a quite long history, though it hasn't always been known as Loop. So when it was first introduced, it was called fluid components and the fluid framework. And it was actually first demonstrated many years ago, back in May 2019, at one of the Build conferences, one of the technology conferences that Microsoft hold. And then what happened was that this fluid framework was put on GitHub. Again, the Microsoft, platform for where you can share code with each other. In November 2021 was when Microsoft introduced the name Microsoft Loop. So I believe they felt that the Fluid framework was not a commercial valid name, so they renamed it to Microsoft Loop. I kind of like Fluid because really what the technology does, and this is something that you will see, is that it's a fluid technology that can live across different applications. Otherwise how it is today when you use Word, so you write the text in Word, the text is in the Word document. But what if you want to use this this text in a post in a channel? Well, then you have to copy and paste, but if you make an update here, it doesn't get updated. So having this fluid technology enables us then to use the same information, the same component, but it can go across different applications. And this is what we're going to show you. So the fluid framework is what is underpinning what's now called Microsoft Loop. Now, Microsoft started to put this into Microsoft 365, various so-called loop components. Different parts of these loop components. So you could see them in chat, you could see them in Outlook, you could see them now in Teams channels. And again, we're going to show you this in the live demo. And then in November 2023, the Loop app was launched. Officially launched. It had been in preview before that, but officially launched. So now we actually have a full-fledged application for collaboration that's called Microsoft Loop. And that's what we're going to show you today. And we're also going to, answer those questions is that, well, why do you need it? So that's a little bit about the background, and so that you know that this is something that it's developed from Microsoft, and it's not brand new. It has really matured over time. Okay, I've talked a little bit about the different components. So maybe I'll just cover that slightly before we get into the live demos, right? So I talked about components, pages, and workspaces. So you could think of it as a component. This could be a list. It can be a checklist. It could be all different things as a component. You can build pages with multiple components, and then you could build entire workspaces where you collaborate with each other. Is that enough, Julianne, you think, as a bit of a background before we get into just some live demos?
I think that's a really good start.
Okay, so let's start quite high level, okay? And then why don't we take this meeting as an example? So as a best practice, we always say that you should always send an agenda with any meeting. In fact, some people say that you shouldn't even accept a meeting invitation unless there is an agenda. And this is something that we've been talking about for years and years and years. Yet again, when you are in a meeting, it's kind of hard to keep track of that agenda. So what you can do, and where we see a great benefit of using Loop, is that today you can use a Loop component as the agenda for the meeting, so that internal meeting participants can easily access it. Now, why don't we take this meeting here, this webinar, since we're doing a normal Teams meeting, why don't we take this as an example? And I'm going to share my screen. But I do again have to note here that since you are external meeting participants, most of you will not be able to see this. But so if you have an internal meeting, then you can see it. Okay, so I'm going to share here the webinar window. And you will see here at the top that I have something called notes. If I click on the notes, this opens up the loop component or the loop panel on the right-hand side. So here, this is a live component of the agenda, the meeting notes, and the follow-up tasks. But what is really nice is that everyone internally now in the organization can collaborate on the agenda and on the meeting notes and the follow-up tasks. So we can also check off, what have we done, what is Loop, and why do we need it? I think we've covered it. We haven't covered it like why do we need it all the way, but I think we'll be able to answer that by the end of today's session. And we're now into the second part of the agenda, which is the live demos. So it's a really good way that you can always keep everyone involved in the agenda for the meeting itself. We also have meeting notes. So again, for years, we've been saying that you should take your meeting notes in OneNote. You should share all of your meeting notes with everyone in the meeting. And, if you're doing that, that's absolutely great. That's amazing. But what we also notice is that the quicker pace that we have in today's, modern workplace, we don't always have time to do that. But we kind of just jibble down some quick notes. Some of us also have modern AI-based tools like Copilot that can help take meeting notes for us. But how do we make sure to share that with the entire meeting and with all the meeting participants? So as you can see here, as I'm talking to you guys, Julianne and Midhun are adding things to the meeting notes and also to the follow-up tasks. So that's a really interesting one here now, right? The follow-up tasks. Where do these end up if we put up a task here, so Julianne, why don't you share a little bit what's going on here in the follow-up tasks?
So in the follow-up task, what's great is that anyone internal that you would like to assign a task, this allows you on demand in the meeting to actually add the task, assign it to a single person or multiple people if you'd like. And in addition, you can also add a due date. And that will then flow into your to-do. Or, as you know, you can also see your to-do tasks and things that were assigned to you in the planner icon on the pinned on the left-hand side of your Teams. So if I were then to go to my Teams environment, I would then, or my to-do, I would then be able to see this to-do task. I think my favorite thing about this is once I have finished this task, whether I decide that I have finished it here or in my to-do, it then notifies everyone that was part of this loop component that I have completed my task and checks it off across any place that it has been put. So including my to-do and including my planner task where it says assigned to me. So that is probably one of my favorite parts about using a loop component in a meeting.
And I really like that as well because we've been, we have all these different it's to do and it's planner, and we're like, oh, is there yet again a new place to put our tasks? But here, that integration is really beautiful so that you don't have to worry about that it's yet another place where you have to keep track of your to dos. It's all seamless. And with Loop and that capability, you can then see it in different places, but it's all kind of synchronized across. So that's very cool. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here in this internal meeting. And why don't we continue a little bit with the demo? And then I'm going to ask you, Julianne, let's step into our demo environment where we can play around and do stuff as much as we want.
I am going to start an email. So if I want to insert a loop, because I'd like to create a component that all of us can then work on collaboratively together for planning our company retreat. So I'm going to add a loop component. I'm going to start with a checklist. As you can see, I can choose from many different options. So I could do a table, we could do a Q&A, we could do a numbered list, but at this point, we're just going to start with a checklist.
Hey, so here again, it's just, starting out. We might not have a team for it. We don't have a project. It's just an idea. Some people, might be using Outlook. Some might be, so we're starting this out just as, just as an initial idea, right? So you're sending this out to a few people here. Again, these people now are internal within our demo environment. Okay. Perfect. So we have a little loop component here. Okay.
Now I'm going to send that off. And
what if some people are not like Outlook? Like, so I know our internal team, right? They never use Outlook. They're always on Teams. How could we include them in that component?
I could go to my recent loop components in the loop application, either in the desktop version or online. And you can see it immediately has put this in here. So now I can open up the loop component I just created, and then I can share it. So I can share the loop component with anyone else within the organization.
And now you're going to the Loop workspace where you, of course, see all of your different components, but you could have also gone, directly from that Outlook, from the email and copy it from there.
Yes.
So that's great. Why don't we see, do you have a chat somewhere where we can paste that in?
Let me copy it first.
And Midun, you know that you're now behind the scenes. Should be receiving this email. Yep. Okay, so now you're going into to Teams.
Teams, and I'm going to create a chat.
Yeah, and this could be a group chat. It could be a one-to-one chat. It could be, yeah.
And let's see, who should I add?
Linda, you could add Linda, perhaps.
I'll add Linda. And I can now paste my loop component.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
Midhun has it now via email. Linda has it via the chat.
Hmm.
I've sent it through email. So
Hmm.
we all have the same loop component, and we've copy pasted it. So no matter where it gets updated, it will be updated across all of the different platforms and
Hmm.
applications.
So Midun, why don't you just check off one, decide on dates. Maybe you check that off and maybe add something that we need to do. Um, Decide dates, choose location, agenda for the retreat, maybe set up a planning group, because that would be the next thing, right? We need a planning group if we're going to plan a big company event. Okay. So as you can see, whether you get it from email, you get it in the chats, at this stage, we're like, you know what? We need to share this in a team as well, in a channel. We could do it. We could share it there as well. But we're all working on the same components. Okay. I'm going to pause a little bit and I'm going to see, because we have a lot of questions coming in into the chat. So let's just take a pause there. Thank you, Julianne, so much. So here we have a question in the chat. I prefer using OneNote for meeting notes. What's your view? We do too. And especially like this, if I have a pen and I'm in an actual meeting, I love taking digital notes in OneNote. So we're not saying that Loop is replacing OneNote. OneNote is still there and it's still very useful for a lot of things. But Microsoft has made a strategic decision to change the default notes application for a Teams meeting. You know, when you click on the meeting notes in Teams, before that used to be OneNote. Right now, it is not anymore. Now it is Loop. So Microsoft has made a strategic decision that Loop is the app for quick collaborative meeting notes in Microsoft Teams. With that said, we definitely believe that there's a lot of other use cases where you might be using OneNote, where you have, more, longer or handwritten notes. So it's not one or the other. It really is a preference and giving you the options. But I think from Microsoft's perspective, it was that a lot of people were not taking any meeting notes. They were taking it on like sticky notes or on their desktop. So instead, this is a much better way. We have a question here about the access rights for the loop components. So basically, what you're seeing now, every time we share the loop component with someone via chat, via email, in a team, in a channel, we give those people permissions to that component. But it does it kind of automatically. But it will only be the people that have been invited to that component that has the permissions to access it. So in one way, you're creating a little bit of a silo because it's only the people that have been shared that has shared the loop. But everyone who's a member, everyone who has access to the loop can share. We have a question here. How do you follow up on the task? So I think that's a really, really good thing to show. Julianne, can I ask you to share your screen again and go into a meeting in the demo environment that we had? And we can look at this. How would we see these different follow-up tasks that we've added? I think it's good to actually demonstrate that. Great questions.
So
Great.
this is a meeting from April 16th.
Mhm.
We were doing some preparations for a different webinar, and we had some agenda items. We had some meeting notes. We even had a voting table to decide which should be our next topic, and we had some follow-up tasks. So I can easily quick check to see if you have had a chance to build out the agenda, or if Midhun has had time to set up the event for the registration page. And understandably, you probably both have not done that yet because we had not finalized on an actual agenda or an actual discussion, which we will do. So, but I did talk to the customer about participating. So I'm going to
Well
check mine
done, you,
off.
Julianne. You have done your task.
That's what you get to do when you get to be the presenter.
Okay.
So hopefully, Ulrika, you also should be able to see that I have actually finished my task. and also mid-hood.
So let's see that then. You have the tasks apps there at the top. What happens if you click to the right of the follow-up task, the tasks app button on the right-hand
Ah,
side? What
that's a great
happens if you
question.
click one of those?
So I can now
Hmm?
open it in Planner. It actually creates a planner and puts the tasks in the to-do bucket that automatically gets created with a new planner.
Mm.
So this would then give me the opportunity to turn this into a planner if we realize that we obviously have a lot more to do for this webinar than just this task list and this
Mm.
loop component.
And what is cool then, so you see here that I have been assigned a task. I have not done it yet. I get to build out the agenda. So let me switch again. I'll just take over a little bit here, Julianne. And I have gone into my to-do in Microsoft 365. And I'm looking here at all of the things that have been assigned to me. And here I can see build out the agenda in the webinar preparations. So, and I'm very quick, so I'm going to do that now. Done. I'm done with the agenda. And now if you go back to the initial meeting, yay! And we are all done with our tasks. Amazing. Very, very well done. So now we've
And
looked
now,
at the tasks in the meeting in Teams. We've looked at the tasks in Planner. I've looked at the tasks in my to-do. So again, it doesn't matter where you look at it. The task gets tracked because it's using Loop, so it synchronizes across these different applications. So as of yet, we've just shown a component, right? So we've showed multiple components. We've shown the voting table, we've shown the list, we showed the agenda, the meeting notes. All of these were loop components. Okay. We shared them. First, we started through Outlook. Then we shared it in Teams meeting. Here's the new planner icon, as you see. It was visible in Planner, and I could also see it in To Do. Now, the thing is, you could also include any of these components both in OneNote, Word Online as of yet, and Whiteboard. So this is what we mean with it being, fluid. You have one component, but it works across your different applications. Okay. Okay, so we have from Susan here. You say that when you open it in Planner, it creates a new planner. How is that linked by Microsoft 365 group? Okay, this is a great question. So some of you know that every time we create a plan in Planner, it actually creates a Microsoft 365 group behind that. So what Loop is doing is actually creating a view in Planner for that. So, Julianne, can you show your screen again? And we can see it's not a real plan in Planner. It's like a virtual plan. Oh, now we've checked everything off, so I guess it's not so fun to look at. But so if you see it here, it looks, even though you have the same kind of functionality, you will see that this is, it doesn't look like one of the other plans. It's like a view of this coming from Loop. Okay, let's actually move on. So we've looked at how you can share a loop component, different types of loop components in different settings. When it was first launched, you could only do the loop component in a chat, in a group chat. And we were very upset with that because we as stores really want to encourage people to collaborate in teams and channels. So Julianne, could you just open up a team, please? And you don't have to follow the flow of our demo here. You could just open up any team and just here, if you like start a post anywhere. I just wanted to show how this looks like. So we start a post, and there you can see in the bottom, you see the little loop component. So here we can select the different loop components so that we can share it in a channel as well. So I'm really happy about that because whenever we're collaborating, we do want to have, we do want to use channels and not just chat groups. We've started using this internally at Storyals. Sometimes we write text. It could be text for a webinar. It could be something that we want to share across. So then instead of putting it as a channel post, because then the person who put that post needs to go in and edit it. Before we would have put it in a OneNote, but then again, we have to put a link to a OneNote and then everyone has to access the OneNote. But now we put in a loop component with just the text and everyone can go in and just update the text. So we can use channels, we can use teams the way that we normally do, but we have a more flexible way of creating and reusing content. Great. So we had also a question around like a spreadsheet type component. And so what you can do is you can create tables and you can create different types of columns. Um, if you want more advanced functionality, then I would suggest using, either lists or perhaps again just Excel online if you need more of that advanced, calculations. Of course, you can always use the traditional Microsoft 365 applications and keep one copy of the source and share a link to that one master copy. But with Loop, it works a little bit different. It's more fluid. Great. Okay, I think we should move on. So let's move on in the demo and let's look at the Loop workspaces. If I go to Microsoft 365, again, I'm in the web browser now. So I can just search for Loop. And here I have the Loop Workspace app. This is also available as a desktop app, so you can also use it from there. So you can think of a workspace as a place where you all get together and you share lots of information. So if we take the scenario before where we had an idea, it started out as just a simple checklist, you know what? Now we actually want to plan an entire company offsite. Well, for that, we need more space. We need more people, and we need to put together a core project team. So we've now advanced from the initial loop component, and we now have an entire workspace. So who is a member here? We have 3 members, and I can see the members that are here. I can also see who is currently in the workspace. So I can see who's actually here. So I can see that of the 3 members, we have Midhun here as well. He's not yet in here. And what I can do is that if I go here, I can invite more people. So, let's invite Johan here. Let's invite him to the workspace as well. Now, it is even more flexible because say here that I'm working on the core project team. Here we have a loop component with the team. So here, maybe I also want to add Linda. And here it will say, Linda is not part of this collaborative workspace. Do you want to add her? And you know what? Yes, I do. So here, I could either just give Linda access to this singular component, or I could add her to the entire workspace. So it also knows if I'm working with someone that does not have access to this component or not. But here I want to add Linda to the entire project team. So I'll invite her so that she has access to the entire workspace. As you can see here, we now have one page where we look at the background, we look at the different goals that we have, different milestones. Each of these are components, but we've added them here into one single page. In this workspace, we have more information. We have links to documents that we share. We have a page here for accommodation, and we have different travel options. What Julianne could do is that she could take this list, this component, and she could actually share that outside of this workspace to get feedback from others, and this will be filled up. Okay. So really, when you're working together like this and you're creating pages and components, you get a really, really fast and fun way to work together. So for instance, maybe I want to add a new page. So if I want to add a new page, I can use one of the existing templates. So I have a full template gallery of different things that I could, let's add an issue tracker, for instance. This is something that we want to have. So you can see here, I have the issue tracker, the background. So I'll use this template because all the time, if you're planning something, there's always going to be an issue. So I'm going to put here budget constraints. And of course, since Microsoft is building Copilot into everything as well, for those who have a Copilot from Microsoft 365 license, will also get help to fill these pages and to write and to summarize. But here in this version, we do not have Copilot. We just have the out-of-the-box loop that's included in Microsoft 365. And thank you, Julianne and Mithun for adding. We always have the visa issues when we're working international, right? Oh man. Anything else here on the that we? I mean, there's so much to talk about, right? But we maybe we should talk about the notifications. I think that's an important one. So if I want to add here, I want to do Julianne. Can you please fill out the below? Okay. Now I'm mentioning you. I'm asking you to do something. Where does this end up? Does it end up in your email? Does it end up in your as a chat message? Please share your screen, Julianne, and we can see where this ends up.
Absolutely. So the first place I notice it is I have a notification in my Loop application, which tells me that Ulrika mentioned me. And if I click on it, it takes me directly to the page and the location of where that notification is. So I now know. It also does send an email.
So some of you might ask, how does this then relate to Teams? And we're working in Teams and we're working in Channel. And so personally, I can say that I would like to see a little bit more. I would love that you could add a workspace maybe as a tab in a channel in Microsoft Teams, and that it's more intuitive the way that that collaborative workspace is set up. But I think also this is also something that's coming more and more. And for those that work closely together, having everything there in that workspace is really, really convenient. So we talked about an individual component. So you can share and you can put privileges on a component. Those components can be in a page. And then you could add pages into an entire workspace. And you can create then different workspaces for different initiatives or different projects. And you use the Loop app to see that. Where is all of this stored? So this was one of the questions that we had. So let's look a little bit at this. Let's look at the first or one of the scenarios when we were just sharing a Loop component in Outlook or in the Teams chats. Okay. So what happens then is that the actual Loop file, the storage of the Loop component, is stored in the OneDrive accounts of the person who created the Loop component. Okay. So very similar to how it is today with a meeting recording that you initiate or a file that you share in a chat, it's stored in your own OneDrive. We also showed how you create a loop. If you create a loop from scratch in a team, in a channel, it gets stored in the SharePoint of that team. And then everything that you create in the Loop app is stored in SharePoint, but in this new type of storage called SharePoint Embedded. So For those of you who work with governance, with permissions, there is a really, really good article here of kind of the life cycle management, data loss prevention, permission setting. So here you can find more information on exactly where are these different components stored.
And that
Okay.
leads right to a good question around version history. Who
Yes.
you can see if I deleted something or if you added something. I always think it's great to be able to know where to go to restore from a
Yes.
previous version.
That is great. So if we bring up here, if we have this issue tracker here, and I go in on the right-hand side, you can see that we have a version history. Okay, so this was brand new. Maybe we go to maybe this one to see if we have the version history here. Yeah. So here we can see that we were working on this late last night. And here we can see, who made the changes at what time so that you can revert back. Yes, thank you, Julianne, for bringing that up. I wanted to share another article. Again, hopefully after attending this session, you'll really know how to use Loop, and hopefully we've given you a good explanation. But I anyway wanted to share these two articles with you from Microsoft Learn because they're very good in terms of just having a general understanding of using Loop. Okay, so Julianne, what would you say are some best practices that we would like to give to the audience?
The very first one I think is, start small. Start maybe with meeting chat with your meeting notes and use
At the
that
meeting
as a
that in the
basis
meeting itself, right?
in the
The
meeting
Teams meeting
itself.
that we showed. Yeah.
Yes, with an
Mm.
agenda. Start
Mm.
when you create that. This is a great time to start that practice, as you stated earlier, to have an agenda for a meeting. And you can do that when you create your meeting, either in Teams or in Outlook.
Mm. What I would say for now is put the agenda in both places. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but since the agenda in the Teams meeting invite comes a bit under and it loads underneath and not everyone might look there. So for now, just be a little bit smart. Put the agenda twice, put it first in the loop, and then just copy paste it as plain text for everyone that's not following the loop revolution. But then when you have the meeting, you can say, yeah, just let's take collaborative notes. And when people click on the notes, they will see the agenda. And when you start using that as the thought digital leader as you are, they will catch on. So that's a really good kind of start small and just start with those collaborative agendas and meeting notes. What's next?
I love, again, turning those tasks from a meeting into a planner. Most of the
Mm.
time, those meetings that we have turn into something that's a much bigger project. And instead of having to then start a planner after the fact and re-add in all of those tasks, I love being able to open it up in Planner and then being able to start the board from there. So that's one
Mm.
of my favorite things as far as a
Mm.
best practice.
Mm. Totally agree. And then I would have to say, so again, we're not saying that Loop is for everyone, but the thing is, it's really fun to work with. And once you start using it, it's more fluid. You can collaborate, you can get your job done quicker. So if you're starting a new initiative and you know that it's an internal team, and you're going to work on something and you're going to work, it's like your huddle room, it's like your war room. For that, it's really, really great because you have everything together in one place and it's fun and it's modern and it's really fast. With that said, just like Microsoft Teams and just like Microsoft 365, you can invite external people to join you as external collaborators. But I would say at the moment, don't depend or don't choose Loop if you are working on something with a lot of external collaborators. There's just too much headache unless that person is set up as a vendor, like fully embraced in your tenant with permissions. we have come to the end. From all of us at Storyals, thank you so much for attending. I hope that we've been able to inspire and motivate you a little bit to take one step forward and to support your employees around you. We're here to help you drive digital leaders of tomorrow. Thank you so much, everyone.